Catholic Martyrs of the Spanish Civil War, 1936 to 1939. A Catholic Holocaust by Fray Justo Perez de Urbel. Chapter 2. Two Women. Madrid. Over the capital, like the black wing of a crow, hangs the shadow of the Marxist pack. The clear, joyful picture of Madrid has been scribbled over with fire and blood. Terror rules. It is 1936. An exasperated hatred, a great hatred against order, values, and equilibrium, flows around and drowns everything. The executioner is right out in front. It's the theme of a new behavior. On the 20th of July, around midday, groups of armed men started shooting at the college of Santa Susana, 28 Pedro Herrera Street. The bullets went through the windows and bounced off the surrounding walls. It is the headquarters of the Sisters of Charity of the Sacred Heart of Jesus. The shots sound like a gloomy forecast. Some good ladies in front of the college shouted out to the nearest shooters to stop. Besides the nuns, there were many little girls in the college, and they could be killed. Knock at the door, and certainly the sisters would open it. With these and similar arguments, they persuaded the savages to stop firing and, after blows with their rifle butts, shouts, and disturbances outside the door, it was promptly opened by the Mother Superior. Her serene expression, and above all her age, would have had the effect on anyone with sensitivity, but not those men. The nuns and the resident girls, about 80 poor orphans, had taken refuge in the cellar, near the porter's lodge. In the chapel, where they had been when the firing started, were the other sisters. On opening the college door, a whistle blast assembled the intruders, and a disorderly rabble took over the whole building. Some ran to raise the red flag of the Communist Party on the highest point of the roof. Others waved a second flag in front of all. Still others showed themselves baffled and disturbed by the presence of the girls, who held on tightly to the sisters, crying and shouting, and resisting attempts to pull them away. It was not a very pleasant picture. Some terrified people never got over that occasion. Donna Guadalupe, one of the neighbors of the college, opened the door of her house and invited them all to seek safety within, filling up all her rooms with nuns and girls. At the same time, through the mediation of an influential policeman who was a friend of the family, she called for 3 or 4 cars full of guards and armed police. Even if they did nothing about the disturbance of the invasion, the police could at least amiably influence them to stop firing from the roof of the college at the unfortunates gathered in the house of Doña Guadalupe. The police also used their cars to carry the sisters and girls wherever they might choose, freeing them from the attentions of the invaders and removing them from that dangerous place. These events surprised the mothers Dolores and Francisca in the chapel where they were making their final prayers. They had already finished the rosary when Mother Dolores asked her companion to give her her soul's recommendations because there will not be time later. "And now what next?" she asked her when they had finished this exercise. "We must forgive all those who are killing us, injuring us, and generally doing us harm." This was the simple and beautiful reply of the elderly religious, raising the tone of her voice louder than usual. Impressed by the shots directed at the house and, in particular, against the door of the church, the sisters, who were also in the chapel, heard the superior's tranquil words. "Let us finish now, and may God's will be done." Before leaving, they prepared for death. At once, they went to the porter's lodge and stopped there a few moments. Mother Francisca, whose second name was Aldea, was standing next to Mother Dolores Pujalte, seated on a bench because of her considerable infirmary. She asked Mother Aldea if everything had been done. "Yes, Mother, everything, even the soul's recommendation. We are all ready." Even before the reply, Mother Dolores started to recite the Credo aloud, and in those moments of anguish, perhaps in the shadow of death, the testimony of Christ strengthened them all. In the same tone, Mother Aldea joined in to the end, in the presence of the militia, one of whom spoke heatedly with the Mother Superior, while others concentrated on the inspiring figure of the old lady. Holding on to each other at the end of the Credo, Mother Aldea and the Mother Superior crossed the door into the street without any hindrance. With them was another religious who hastily removed herself from the confusion. At the time of her departure, the Mother Superior addressed the militia with some words of commiseration, asking them not to interfere with them, as she was so old and ill she could hardly walk. One of the militia apparently heeded her request and said he would accompany them to see that nothing happened. With a companion, he escorted them to the next house, number 198, Calle de Alcala. On that short trip, they were joined by Sister Lorenza Alonso, much to the delight of Mother Aldea, who needed some assistance in caring for the very ill Mother Dolores. Almost at the same moment, Mother Victoriana Uriarte reached them. Mother Uriarte and 3 of the resident girls came to show them the house where they could take shelter until they were able to continue on to the house that had been prepared for them originally. As they entered, a coarse woman protested about their being allowed to assemble there, and one of the militia replied, "Leave them alone. They won't be there long." They were received in a very friendly fashion on the 6th floor by Doña Maria Torné and her daughter, a former pupil of the college. They stayed there some 2 hours, which were not very restful because the porter's wife made a lot of fuss. The militia kept coming up to the flat, threatening to burn the house down if the nuns remained there. Between them and those downstairs, with their blasphemies and obscenities, they did not leave Senora Torné in peace for a moment. So it was decided that the 2 sisters, Lorenza Alonso and Victoriana Uriarte, with the 3 girls, would leave, while the 2 mothers would remain. So there they are. The black solitude said to precede the final torment appears. Who are these 2 women? What force have they to frighten the brutal tyranny? What political initiatives depend on them? Then, Senor, torment them and persecute them in that fashion? No, it is true, they are not very important. It is Christ. But let us continue. In truth, it was the little girls who upset the plans of the militia, the continuing presence of those little girls who had no idea of any refuge other than the mothers. It was necessary to get rid of the girls so that the solitude of the poor women would be more absolute, more cruel, and then destroy them as martyrs. But Christ will never be destroyed. In one of the visits, Doña Maria Torné tried to pacify the revolutionaries by saying that the sister was ill, that the others would be going soon, and that they should leave them in peace. Sister Lorenza Alonso observed that, while agreeing with what Doña Maria said, one of the militia answered her, but at the same time made an equivocal gesture to his companion. Yes, they can stay. We will look after them ourselves. Consider the picture. 2 defenseless nuns surrounded by a pack of wolves. The house, the virtuous and noble lady who has given them shelter. Only in moments of danger do we see what people are really like. In moments of danger, dilemmas present themselves with an air of urgency and so critically that the slightest slip can have disastrous consequences. Nevertheless, Senora Torné did not hesitate a moment before risking the peace of her home by offering her hospitality to those 2 women in those turbulent times. Think about it. The mothers prefer to leave the house because they are sure they are a cause of embarrassment to the owner, if not a positive danger. But Senora Torné insists. Her spirit rises to the occasion. How could a woman abandon 2 elderly women incapable of defending themselves? Once the two mothers were alone in the house, Senora Tournay anticipated further trouble from the militia and considered the need for the invalid to have a rest after the commotion of that morning, climbing up 120 steps to get to the flat, and all the other worries caused by so many violent events. Senora Tournay asked her neighbor, Doña Amparo Salazar Corcuera, to allow them to come into her flat, to which she readily agreed, arranging for Mother Dolores to lie down immediately. Then she insisted that Mother Francisca Aldea also lie down, since she was tired out, not having slept the previous nights. Although anxious about the situation, she agreed to lie down. Less than an hour passed before an armed group knocked at the door and asked for the nuns. There were 5 militiamen and 2 militia women. With raucous cries like crows, they seized their feeble prey. Doña Amparo tried to calm them down, saying that they were old, one was blind and ill, and they were asleep. "I have to see them," said the one who appeared to be in charge. And so, with an appearance of humility, but without any attempt to observe the normal civilities, he broke into the room of the poor women and ordered them in a rude manner to get dressed immediately. With difficulty, Doña Amparo managed to get the militiamen to leave the room and arranged that only the militia women could remain while the 2 nuns got dressed. On realizing the condition of the elder nun, not even able to dress herself, the militia women, very excited and shouting at first, appeared to soften a bit. Doña Amparo noticed this and asked, "What harm have they done you that you should treat them so harshly?" The militia woman said nothing. Probably she had suddenly realized what it was all about, the tragic responsibility involved in that question. Doña Amparo burst into tears. "They haven't done anything wrong to anyone." "Yes," said the militia woman, "but we have been given an order and we must carry it out." "Where are you taking them?" "To a hospital," replied the girl dubiously. The 2 nuns said not a word throughout the conversation. Doña Amparo did not know what to say or where to turn to save the unfortunate nuns from the fate that surely awaited them when, at last, they were at the mercy of those soulless monsters. When the 2 mothers were dressed, the armed committee entered the room again, and Doña Amparo tried again to get them to change their minds and leave the nuns there. She did everything she could think of to achieve this objective. The good lady did not know that it was all in vain, because the most manifest argument did not even have to be put in words. It was only necessary to observe the condition of the 2 disabled women. Not surprisingly, Doña Amparo failed again. "Impossible, let's go," said the leader of the band. Nevertheless, a militia woman, distressed, exclaimed, "Comrades, I feel guilty about carrying out our orders." "But they must be obeyed," said the chief sourly. The last act of the cavalry commenced. They all moved off to the staircase in a disorderly mob, taking the 2 women with them, while the eldest, dumb as a lamb, panting, was virtually being dragged. Halfway down the stairs, the old lady could manage no more. Her agonized eyes sought some support to hold on to, but in vain. Her alarmed companion bravely begged them, "For God's sake, have pity on her." The answer that came back was, "Keep going or we'll kill you here and now." "Do what you like," she replied as they continued on down. They have reached the front door. Look at them. Think about them again. Distraught, exhausted faces. In addition to the inevitable tiredness of so many nights on watch and so many alarms, of so many brutal assaults, there is also the acute pain of the continual blasphemy going on round them. The pain of the disgusted gestures of those captors. Look at them. It is nearly 4 p.m. The principal actors in the early evening hours of a July in Madrid are the birds, the light, life, and hate. They show them to a car. "Get in here, quickly!" The 2 women comply as fast as they can. As they were getting into the car, a neighbor from the same house boldly went up to the militia. He confronted them. His name, which is worthy of honorable mention, is Ursulino Sierra. "But comrades, where are you going with these two women? What harm can it do you if they stay where they are in this house?" "We are carrying out orders," said one of the militia. "And where are you taking them to?" "What's it to do with you, comrade? Or are you one of them?" "This is not at all right what you are doing." A militia with a face like a professional assassin addressed himself fiercely to Don Ursulino. "And who are you to talk to us like this?" "I'm just another man like you. Does the committee forbid compassion towards old ladies?" "I have told you we are carrying out orders." Senor Sierra was not placated, and they left him there with his complaints, together with threats of fascist, which, as the reader can imagine, was the best way to ensure that he got a bullet in the neck before long. Various other militia entered the vehicle with the nuns, a large one with at least 8 seats, and they traveled rapidly until they passed the nearby village of Canillejas. Not far from the point where the Barajas Road used to turn off, at a point which is today a part of the aerodrome runway, they got out. The blaspheming started up again. Blows began. The physical state of the two nuns had hit bottom. The knowledge that they were at the mercy of their enemies had helped to demoralize them. It is well known that the apprehension and long anticipation of evil is very exhausting. Mother Francisca Aldea had, in addition to her advanced age, a struggle with a timid disposition that had caused her trouble all her life. On the eve of the revolution, when the other nuns round about her were discussing what they thought would be the course of events in Madrid, one of the comments was, "Mother Aldea, we must prepare for martyrdom." "I am terrified," she replied. "But if that is what the Lord wants of me, then I am sure he will give me the strength to bear it. May his will be done. I only hope it will be during daytime." Well then, look at them in the roadway. What must be passing through their minds? The July sun falls down like lead, and the bone-dry, dusty fields painfully reflect the sun, creating an unreal, fantastic scenario. It's the end. Assailed by the butts of the rifles, they have to move along the road and later on into the fields. There they killed them, with several rifle shots in the forehead and in the chest. Mother Francisca Aldea got 6 shots, and Mother Dolores got 3. Referring to them, someone heard incidentally how they had spoken about Our Lady. It would be superfluous to add the reasons for which the 2 women were sacrificed. The assassins could have no other reason for killing them than that they were religious. No attempt was made to search them, as is proven by the fact that Mother Francisca Aldea, in her capacity as treasurer of the Institute of the Sacred Heart of Jesus, had with her some items and documents of importance. These included the name of the congregation and that of its superior, all of which were rescued by the Canillejas Judiciary and in 1939 returned to the Reverend Mother Superior of the College of Santa Susana. Obviously, if they had seen or thought about the documents and other valuable items, the militia would have taken them. Also found were their consecration rings, rosary, and crucifix, just as they carried them. The reader, in the final analysis, will decide why the 2 women were assassinated. Observing total obedience to the Holy Church, as we said in the introduction, we will describe the events subsequent to the assassination, confining ourselves rigorously to the data assembled and the material used in the early stages of the process of beatification. The fact that it took place early in the evening and that the site of the shooting was close to the town meant that a lot of local people got to know about it. With the noise of the shots and the fact that they were the first victims in Canillejas, the judiciary soon visited the site and arranged for burial in the local cemetery. each one in her own tomb. Autopsies on the second day after their death by Doctors Juan Ulla and Don Agustin Paredes affirmed that, contrary to normal practice, the corpses exhaled a very agreeable perfume, more exquisite than fine essences. On the 22nd of July, 1940, the remains of the two nuns were exhumed, and they were found to be in a state of conservation that permitted the easy identification of each one of them, and showed clearly the points of entrance and exit of the shots in both of them. Among other people of note who assisted at the event was the same forensic doctor, Dr. Juan Ulla, who reconfirmed the sudden death of the nuns and the detail of the unexpected perfume perceived several hours after their death. In the opinion of people who knew and dealt with the Reverend Mothers Dolores and Francisca, they were true martyrs because they accepted and endured death, although they were innocent, and they prepared themselves for it by prayer, pardoning their enemies, and confessing their Catholic faith. They were killed precisely because they were religious. As regards the executioners, there is one inescapable fact. The executioners were emissaries of the atheist Communist Party, with all the consequences deriving therefrom. The two nuns were neither the first nor the last martyrs. Many others awaited their turns to join the angels. What had Spain become then? Some years before, the Heraldo de Madrid published the following. At certain moments in their history, people attain a climax, a culmination, a zenith of causes and other factors, and it is pointless to apply at these times the yardsticks of more tranquil and happy times. We are at war, and in war as in war. Who declared this war? With the death of Don José Calvo Sotelo, the legal basis was set aside by pistol shots, and there was no hope of salvation for Spain by legal means. We are not going into detail now of the tragic political and social events of those days. This has already been done. We only want to put into its proper perspective the double martyrdom we have just described. Violence and agitation on all sides, the madness of unrestrained hatred directed above all at the weak. This is the picture, the definitive picture, in fact. From that enormous and tragic symphony can be discerned the muted clarion call of the martyrs, little by little redeeming us all. At the time, their blood was barely perceptible, but deep down, it revitalized our faith.